Hi, I'm Jim Jubak, and welcome to my YouTube video for July 14th. I'm wearing my former District 51 hat, no longer the name of the Las Vegas team, but it's in honor of the aliens who are staying with us this weekend because it's just too hot in Las Vegas. So welcome, guys. I'm going to tell you, hey, if you want to see more of my portfolios, picks, commentary, etc., go to my free site, jubakpicks.com. If you want even more portfolios, 6 instead of 3, even more picks, special reports, etc., go to my subscription site, sign in, subscribe, and that's jubakam.com. Next week's Q&A, we're going to do a live Q&A again on Wednesday, and it'll be on my YouTube channel, so that's where you go to find it. Okay, so today's topic. There's been a lot of debate about inflation, whether it's here, whether it's going to, we've got a big spike in inflation, whether that's going to taper off, whether we're going to see any inflation. Today's topic is inflation is here, listen to PepsiCo and Conagra. These are two big food companies, and I know that core inflation does not include food or energy, on the idea that, hey, if you want to avoid inflation, you can simply stop eating, driving, using electricity, all that. You don't really need to do that stuff, so it doesn't count. So the fact that we've had above 5% inflation rates annualized for both May and June doesn't really matter because, hey, the core rate is below 5. Not much, but a little bit. So I want to talk about what these two companies, which have recently reported earnings, said. So PepsiCo delivered a massive earnings beat, and you can see the reaction to that right here, bloom. Second quarter revenue was up about 20.5% year over year, as opposed to the 19.2 billion that was forecast. But what's really interesting to me is that the company said, hey, we've raised prices. We have pricing power, which is an important point that I want to talk about later in this video. We have pricing power, so we've been able to raise prices. We have seen no drop off in demand because of those price ranges. And for the topic of today, we see more price increases coming. And PepsiCo is basically passing through the rising cost of raw materials like sugar. They're passing through the rising cost of things like shipping and all of their business. They've announced a new $1 billion effort to take costs out of their business, but nonetheless, for you as a consumer, as opposed to you as an investor, that $1 billion is irrelevant because PepsiCo is still going to be raising prices, and that's inflation. For you as an investor, the fact that they're going to be able to raise prices, not see any fall off in demand, and that they're also going to cut costs is a really big plus. The stock, by the way, pays about a 2.88% dividend. So this is a good dividend stock, good prospects going forward. Was trading at about 154.85. Bank of America just came out with a 165 target. So you're looking at a pretty good return, both from dividends of 2.9%, decent return on equity. And the company in the most recent earnings went out and raised its core earnings per share to $6.20 a share from $5.52 in the same quarter, this next quarter of 2020. Okay, but the inflation news, remember, we raised prices, we're going to raise prices again. One-off? No. Conagra, which is another big food processing company, they make Hunt's tomato sauce, among other things, delivered its earnings. Its report was not nearly as good. Let's look at the chart and you'll see exactly how the market reacted to that by plunging. So this is the drop on the earnings report. So they didn't deliver great earnings, but for our point, I'm not recommending Conagra as a stock. If you want to buy a food stock, I would recommend buying Pepsi here. But what was interesting to me is that the CEO in the conference call said, we're seeing this is a quote, an atypical level of inflation. They're forecasting cost inflation of 9% for the year going forward. They're on a fiscal year that begins in June. So from June 2020 to June 2021, they're looking at 9% inflation in a rising cost. That's significant. And this is the kind of stuff that people buy. This is not fancy. This is not, do I need a new car? I won't do it. This is like go to the grocery store, buy groceries. They raised prices in the March quarter. They're going to raise prices again, they think, in the current quarter. So if we're looking for a debate about whether inflation is coming, I think that's the wrong question. Inflation is here. The question is what amount of inflation is going to stick. So if we're looking at inflation in, say, used car prices, because we're seeing, which was a huge amount of the June increase in inflation, because there's a shortage of new cars. So you're seeing pressure on the used car market, a shortage in new cars because of a shortage of chips that automakers use to produce new cars. So those prices went up, and I would argue that's probably not going to stick. On the other hand, the kind of inflation that PepsiCo and Conagra are reporting, I think, does stick. It's not due to unusual glitches. It's not due to crazy weather. There is crazy weather, but it doesn't seem yet to have affected food prices. So, hey, it could well. Think about what's going on in the Imperial Valley of California and what that means to your lettuce price. But this is really a sort of core measure of inflation, and that's really, really important. So if you want to keep track of this, I'd look for what other food companies are saying. General Mills, for example, we'll see what they report, what they say about inflation in the coming months, for example. But one of the things for you as an investor and in inflationary times needs to recognize is that some companies can't really raise prices to make up for inflation at the same rate as they see inflation. PepsiCo, by saying that it was raising prices but not seeing any drop off in demand, said, hey, we've got pricing power. And in an inflationary environment, that's what you want to see. What you want to see is companies saying, hey, we're going to have to raise prices. Sorry about that, consumers, but knowing in your heart of hearts, the consumers are going to continue to buy that stuff. PepsiCo's got it. Coca-Cola's got it. These are companies that I look for in this kind of environment where inflation, at least in part of the economy, I think is here to stay. So that's my report for today. If you like this video, like it. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you get notifications of all upcoming videos, including next week's Q&A, which was the live Q&A on YouTube. If you'd like to leave a question ahead of time, leave it in the comments section to this video or to anything on my site, any of my sites, or tweet me on Twitter, so you can send me a question. We'll try to work those into the flow. If you want to read more stuff on my free site, jubakpicks.com, my paid site, my paid subscription site, jubakam.com. See you next week for that Q&A.